Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Heritage University. My name is Melissa Rogers, and I'm the Vice President of Business Development. And if we've not had an opportunity to meet, I am so glad that you're here. It's a pleasure getting a chance to see you in the audience. Um, we are finalizing our very first class of 2023 as the very final class of our 2022 courses. And tonight we're going to be talking about what is a community plan or a strategic community plan. We're also going to talk about some great things related to board codes of ethics and how you and your homeowners can also make sure that civility is definitely maintained within your association's operations. And so while we are going to be talking about very large topics, if you have any pertinent questions to your community association, we definitely suggest that if you are partnered with a professional management company such as Heritage, that you certainly seek out your community manager for any questions that you hear from tonight. For those of you that are self-managed, this might be a great topic of conversation for your attorney. I hopefully don't think that we're going to be addressing any attorney-related items, so I'll be sure to keep that brief. But for those of you that are joining us tonight and this is your first time, Heritage University has a tremendous catalog available to you for all of our classes, both tonight's class as well as all of our previous recorded classes on our YouTube page. And there's definitely more about that later in our program. So for those of you that have any questions as I go throughout the program, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section. We are monitoring the questions throughout the conversation this evening. However, I am going to wait until the very end to go ahead and get those answered for you. My hope is that I'm going to just give you all the information you need, and you're going to be like, Melissa, I don't have any questions for you. That was so great. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight, I kind of broke it down a little bit already for you. I broke it down that we're going to be learning just these few things. Hold on, I'm learning how to use my mouse tonight. It's going to take a minute, friends. There we go. All right. So we're going to be learning in tonight's class, what is a strategic community plan? You are going to hear those three words over and over and over. It's going to be, ground in your brain tonight. How to develop this plan, how to document, and the best ways to communicate that out to your ownership. As I just alluded to, what's a board code of ethics? And then how do we combat community incivility? And that runs rampant with anybody. That's from vendors to homeowners to board members, unfortunately, community management, lots of different things. So these are going to be some great topics that we're going to address. And I know many of you are actually hopefully some of you, and I think we've got some bad weather, friends. So for those of you that are participating with us, I apologize if I go in and out. We have done everything that we possibly can, and we fear that some of you might also have some issues with the weather or the internet as well. So bear with us as we go through this. But so in real simple terms, you might, as you're going through your annual meeting season, hopefully you just had your annual meeting or are getting ready to have your annual meeting. Maybe you're a brand new board of directors that just turned over from the developer. I know I've been talking to a lot of prospect communities in the recent weeks, and this is definitely something that we focus on big time at this time in their community's infancy. But also for you as a community, you might be very well established, and you might be that new board that's been elected, and you may go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I'm catching up with these things, and okay, this board did it this way, now this board wants to do it this way. How can we have some cohesion? That's exactly what our goal for tonight's conversation is going to be about. So first and foremost, community plans, much like small business plans, because remember, you are a registered corporation with the Georgia Secretary of State. Plans should be the following: a set of priorities, okay? Setting priorities allow for the plan to be adjusted according to the changing needs or the resources. Definitely, we've seen inflation. So we certainly know that having a priority is a good topic to keep our focus short and simple. Keep your plan short and simple. Now, it's going to sound almost counterproductive because tonight we're going to be talking about a 5-year plan. You know, as a community manager at Heritage, a lot of us all also have 1-year strategy community plans with our association. So if you are that board that needs to start small, I think that that's a great place to be. However, I want you to open up your mind tonight and think about the opportunity to extend that plan so that you do have that consistency that we're going to talk about. Plans, I love this. Plans that are more book-like will sit on a shelf, right? I know we like reading, or at least I don't know about you. I know I enjoy reading. I just don't have the opportunity as much as I want to. So certainly make sure that your community plan does not look like, a 3-ring volume that is intimidating or tedious for your future board members or team members to digest. And then, as I just alluded to, we need to base it on a 3 to 5 year period. And again, like I said, 1 year is fantastic to get that started, especially for the recently turned over developer to now resident controlled declarant boards. This is fantastic. But then once you get to that groove, you start setting that expectation within the association. You as board members are getting, acclimated to your roles and responsibilities. Start thinking long term. Very similar, and you're going to hear us talk about it tonight. It's very similar to a reserve study. We harp constantly in just about every one of our educational classes. We talk about the importance of a reserve study and really why associations need it. This should be absolutely no different. And now is the perfect time for the year. It's the end of January. Actually, it's now the beginning of February. Sally, if you didn't know it, Punxsutawney Phil did see his shadow, so we're going to have a little bit more winter. But now's the time of year where this is a great way to, from your annual meeting and kind of recapping the year in review. Now you can plan as strategic advisors and community members. You can adopt this plan or talk about this plan and roll it out to the community as well. So a strategic community plan ensures your community association will remain financially sound. This keeps it from going up and down and up and down from board to board. Projects where your association expects to be in 5 to 10 years and how it will get there. So this is where that reserve study is really going to come into play. Even if you're a community who only has an entrance monument and maybe some irrigation, street lights, and your insurance for your very small budget, it's still very important to understand, are there replacement costs? What happens if, unfortunately, there's a car accident at the front of the neighborhood, and while everything about the community's entrance is maintained, we may not have enough funding for an emergency circumstance or an insurance deductible. For those of you who have joined us for previous classes related to financial budgeting, we really, really talk about how important it is to not only plan for your operating expenses, but to also plan, sadly, to make sure that your operating account has enough money in it left over in case you have a deductible for your insurance claims. Okay, you'll also want to make sure that this plan identifies the quality of life the association homeowners can expect. So being consistent, just like parenting, man, it starts at the very beginning and you really try to do your very best. The good thing is you're all volunteers with different perspectives and different approaches. So trust me when I tell you, it is absolutely welcomed that we have this turnover of volunteer efforts, and a community strategic plan is really going to be the glue that keeps previous and current and present boards, or future boards, I should say, kind of together and in sync. So the plan's also going to stimulate thinking that makes the best use of the association's resources. It's going to create awareness of obstacles and how to overcome them, just as I was talking about with the insurance deductible. And it facilitates progressive advancement of the association's goals. So I know it might sound large because we're talking about 5 years, but really there's such great intention. So why do you need one? I think I might have already answered this, but associations should learn from the lessons of the past. They are necessary. Poorly run community associations, they can lose their appeal to homeowners, prospective buyers, realtors, and potentially the association will lose the value as a whole. So very, very important. Again, part of my job responsibilities with Heritage is I get to have fantastic conversations with boards that are looking to incorporate either professional management for the first time, or they're looking to change their professional management partnership. And so many of the conversations that we have could really be solved, or at least provide some great cohesion when there are long-term community plans in place. So what are some typical problems that we see for community associations with no planning? And I apologize to you in advance if you can relate to one, more, or all of these below. So unmaintained facilities, grounds is in need of cleaning, repair, or replacement. So deferred maintenance, that's typically what we see. Unmotivated and unknowledgeable association personnel. That means you, board. That means you, committee members that choose to serve on the architectural control committee too, because you have value and input that you offer to your association. Uninformed and apathetic homeowners. I will say with an asterisk, and maybe I should have put that in there, but apathetic voting, so to speak, is not necessarily a negative thing. That can oftentimes mean that your community is very pleased with what the board is doing. However, if you see multiple of these items on the slide also present, then it could be something where there's just not a good cohesion of vision for the community's success. So impression of the association funds have not been spent on the common areas or personnel. So you might have a lot of complaints from the homeowners going, hey, listen, I'm not really quite sure how our funds are being spent, but I don't think that they're being spent correctly. Review of the financials may determine that budgets have overages, meaning that you are spending more money than you're taking in from your homeowners. You might even have high delinquency, and that can snowball out of control pretty quickly. So if there is consistent years where there is lack of follow through, that could be actually very detrimental to the association's success for future years. HOA fees are set too low. Sometimes they're set too high. Believe it or not, we actually see a lot of associations that are financially solvent and they have plenty of money from the homeowners and have done all of their community projects up to that timeline based on their reserve study. And so, even understanding that, maybe that's something that you can keep assessments at a plateau for several years instead of doing maybe a 1 or 2% increase as is a best business standard recommendation, of course, outside of the last 2 to 3 years of high inflation that we've seen. So be careful not to fall in the trap. We say this a lot too in previous courses or additional courses that you might listen to us. Try not to withhold your budget for where it is just so that you don't increase the assessments to not upset your homeowners. If you really do have an operational deficit, then you do need to evaluate essentially the way that you are allocating your expenses. And it might just mean that you have to also increase assessments. So impressions that current homeowners do not share the same concern for their property as prospective buyers, and that the home in the community is not a sound financial investment. I hope that that's not the experience that any of you have. But the unfortunate reality is that that is what can happen from time to time with associations that don't have the consistency that we're talking about. So I am trying to go to the next slide, and I hope I have not ruined it. I think I'm having some internet trouble, so I do apologize again. Oh, Josh is coming in to help me out. Thank you. Okay, so associations that do. So now, we were just talking about the ones that don't. Associations that do have some type of long-term planning process will exhibit these following traits. So reversely to everything that we just talked about, well-maintained in current facilities or current maintenance that's not deferred is present. Yeah, you know your useful life cycles. You have a reserve study that is current for your association. You do have motivated and knowledgeable association staff, personnel, board members who convey confidence and success. We always like to tell you it's okay to promote the positive things or the things that are working really well or the successes for the community. Even if there's small wins, there's still wins, and small wins add up. Current homeowners appear to be involved in their association. They have care. They want to know. They want to volunteer, even if it's in a small capacity. Oftentimes, I should have included in there too. We see quorum consistently achieved when there is a good operational plan. Those associations do not struggle to get votes passed for their association, or they have consistent elections where there's turnover of ample volunteers. The financial review will show that the association is on budget. It's aggressive in its collection, and by aggressive, that doesn't mean that it's going after everybody, needlessly. It means that if we are posed with a circumstance where we might have to seek out legal, partnership in order to attain a judgment, that might be something that we have to do if we followed all of the process. So again, consistency within the community is helpful there. Overall impression of the prospective buyers is that, hey, I'm going to live here. They've got their stuff together. And there are a lot of real estate professionals out there. And that we talk to each other, as with all professions. So even if it's not specifically your experience, you might have friends of yours that say, oh my gosh, I love that community. Or we do have some associations that come to us and they say, you know what, Melissa, we really want to make sure that we emulate the same community down the street, so that, our community looks exactly the way that theirs does. There's good things that are involved in that can make that a reality for the community. So, Josh, I'm really trying, and I sincerely apologize. I don't know if I've lost the controls. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right. Good community leadership uses strategic planning. As we've talked about, progressive community associations are led by a knowledgeable and passionate board of directors. Sometimes they're partnered with qualified property managers, but oftentimes they might be self-managed, and boards of directors need to develop and be consistent when they apply key principles and management practices within their community. So pursue a conservative financial management approach that avoids overspending, okay, and then controls the costs and saves for the future. It's not enough to just assess your homeowners for the current expenses. You also need to make sure that you are putting money away in reserves, even if it's a small amount. And be careful to consult your declaration and your bylaws, because your insurance requirements or your budget requirements might also require a specific amount to be put into the reserve account based on your budget. So number 2, maintain your common area elements. Make sure that you are monitoring them and that you are actively addressing that reserve study if there are any needs present or future funding that needs to be considered. Maintain a continuous open dialogue with the homeowners of the community. Goes back to that last slide where the more healthily run the association with consistency, the more people will actually want to be a part of that and be associated with something good, right? And number 4, use a disciplined approach to the administration of rules and regulations, architectural standards, and as well as vendor maintenance. So make sure, again, that you are following everything. Go ahead. Next slide, please. We've switched our controls, so now I think we've got a good flow. A common problem with community associations is too much short-term thinking. So Don't beat yourself up if you are that new board and this already seems a little overwhelming. You have the ability to turn the ship around right now. So just be mindful that while you might, choose to purchase the home in your community because this might be a starter home for you and your family, and you're short-minded in your thought of, hey, I'm only going to live here for 3 years, so whatever they're talking about with this reserve study and community planning, it's really not going to appeal to me or matter much because I'm not going to be here when those things come into play. Yeah, but you're utilizing the association's resources right now. And so while those future items may not be applicable to you in the future, you are reaping the value of the benefit of having them in its good operating use, whether it's a pool, whether it's the roads, whether it's the gate that's operational. So try not to be short-minded, even when your thoughts about, applicability for whether or not it has any purpose for you to be of service to your community. So turnover and those serving on the board can result in constantly changing priorities. A lot of times you might hear us say, try not to reinvent the wheel. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I could keep going. But, again, the strategic plan is what's really going to be helpful for you in sticking to everything and making sure that you are cohesive for the community. Association leaders need to take a long-term look, and we already know this. Go ahead, next slide, please. So a couple of the next slides are going to be a little bit more of the same. We definitely want to have the homeowners buy-in on a lot of things, right? Even though you are the elected board members for your association and the community chose you to be in service, you definitely get more bees with honey. And so, as you know, since you're already here in the audience with us, Heritage is a big proponent on education because education really can solve so many problems. So when association leaders, when the homeowners, when the employees, when they're able to answer these questions, they're going to be very successful in being able to figure out what the outlines for that strategic plan are going to be. So how do we preserve or pursue that conservative financial approach, which is what we just talked about? We definitely need to first know what our collection policy is as outlined by the declaration. Take a look at that, see if it needs to be updated. Again, by updated meaning make sure that if maybe you've engaged a collections agent or if maybe you've changed the threshold of your assessments, definitely take a look at updating your collection policy and make sure your homeowners are aware of what maybe those new thresholds might look like. What kind of image do you want to convey to the community? Okay. And not just now, but, in totality, are you, maybe a community of empty nesters and you're very intimate. And while you enjoy having anybody within the community, you recognize that, this is primarily the homeowners that are living within the association. So you might start to adopt rules that heavily enforce or regulate the use of play equipment in the front yard. When the grandkids come over, just make sure you put it up when it's done. There's a little bit of a difference. Reversely, there are some associations that really want to be family forward focused, and they don't mind that there are tons of play equipment in the front yard because they feel, the board of directors, the community as a whole, they feel that attracts homeowners to be within their community and take advantage of all of the resources and the amenities that association may have. So just know that there's an equal side to each of those coins. And it's very important that you have constant conversation about what that looks like and when it changes, if it does, because it can. Okay, what do we want our community to be known for? We've got a couple of equestrian communities. We've got a couple of communities that have phenomenal amenities. We've got a couple of communities that are known for ranch style homes, and it's a gated entrance. So again, it's okay for you to have a niche. Maybe you're an association that has the best swim team in the county. That's fantastic. Focus on those Again, focus on those small wins that might not mean something to you, but might mean something to a lot of other people in totality. Number 4, how do we attract homeowners who will value their properties in the community? I will say that's a pretty big, consistent question that I get. Hey, how do we actually get people, if there is a delinquency issue, how do we actually get them to pay the bill? How do we get them to understand or receive the buy-in that they're responsible for maintaining the equity within their personal property? Number 5, what is our philosophy? What are the ethics or community responsibility? We'll talk about that here in a couple of slides. And where do we want to be in 5 years? I got to be honest with you. I have a hard time answering that question just from a personal standpoint. So this is why it's so great to have strength in numbers. This should be a community or a, not necessarily community, but more of a board meeting. You can certainly pulse the association. Go ahead, Josh, next slide. You can certainly pulse the association by way of survey, to make sure that you're keeping up with also their thoughts, their desires, their wants. But ultimately, this should be a discussion of the board of directors, okay? And the more that can be in attendance, the more you can debate and align. You like that? The heritage fundamentals are coming into action here. So you can debate and align. You can get clear on expectations. You can set forth new policies or updated information as you see fit. So a key foundation resource for any strategy community plan is the reserve study. See, I told you we were going to get to this slide. It's necessary for the association to have a current or updated version of a professionally prepared reserve study. What I want to tell you, Heritage does not, your management company does not prepare the reserve study. There are specialty companies that do that specifically. They're, professional engineers that are specific to insurance appraisals, structural integrity. There are a couple of different types of reports that you can also get for your association. And, obviously when people think reserve study, they think about associations that have pools and tennis courts and gates and so forth. I encourage you, if you are new to hearing the conversation topic of reserve study, don't forget to take a look at how many trees line the community. Don't forget to take a look at your detention pond or your retention pond and make sure that there might not be any, not just maintenance, but hey, there could be potential damage. There could be other things that happen from large water events that could, inflict injury on those areas. So, security cameras are another thing, or your landscaping install or flowers at the front entrance. I know I had earlier mentioned car accidents that can happen at the front entrances of associations and completely wipe out masonry or fencing at the front entrance. Those are unfortunate real events that happen, and they're happening pretty consistently. So regardless of your community's size, regardless of the amenity amounts that you think, and from time to time I call those, whether or not you have sexy amenities or the non-sexy kind, the non-sexy kind are irrigation, trees. Those are the ones that typically people don't think of when you say the word amenity or responsibility, okay? Next slide, please. So just keep in mind that definitely have your reserve study handy. And if you need assistance with reserve study providers, feel free to let us know in our feedback, and we'll be more than happy to reach out to you afterwards and make sure that you get some great resources and references. So in addition to the reserve plan requirements, the following elements should be addressed in the community plan. Location. Okay, we'll start with that one. How can the association maximize the value of its location in the local real estate market? Maybe you're a community that has additional parcels that still have the ability to have things being built on there. And so that's certainly going to be very important. So take a look and see if you are even competitive. Oftentimes you might be the association that has the lowest assessments in your county. That might be something that you're known for in a good way. That might be something that you're known for in a not good way. Facilities. Does the association want to maintain the current level of facilities, or will major upgrades be considered? So again, maybe you have a pool and a bathhouse, okay? And that bathhouse has 2 restrooms and some ample storage. But that particular parcel is large enough that you could potentially kind of make a smaller clubhouse. That's taking your facilities and upgrading them. That has everything to do with what's the pulse of the community. What do you want to be known for? Adapting to new things as they transpire within the community. Staff. Staff can mean a lot of things, but specifically here, if you are a larger association or if you're an on-site community, on-site meaning that you have a dedicated management staff, maybe you have a guardhouse that is manned both at the front entrance and the back entrance. Maybe you have one particular community manager and they're bringing to the board's attention that there is maybe time to introduce a part-time individual or a second possible assistant manager to assist, or even a maintenance professional on a full-time basis. So definitely take a look at staffing needs. For the example of the staff, I think it's really important to note that if your community has a lot of maintenance, and I mean consistent maintenance, maybe you're a townhome association, maybe you're a condominium building, take a look. What are the totals that you're spending on your budgets annually, and see whether or not it might be more cost effective for you to have a full-time individual than having somebody that does constant part-time work. So that's also something to consider when you're looking at staff. Homes. Are the recommendations of the association, are there recommendations that the association wants to make or to homeowners, or any changes to the individual homes to improve the overall value of the community? So now we're talking about land restrictions. Sometimes that comes by way of maybe leasing authority or being able to monitor those items. Sometimes that means instituting a brand new community-wide aesthetic or a color scheme for the community's exterior of the home. So that could be some of the things to keep in consideration. Now we're talking about people. Is the association making efforts to attract homeowners who value the properties within the community? Again, to our location and our last slide. What do you want to be known for? It's totally acceptable to have those conversations. Okay, association. Is the current association effective? So taking a look at it right now. What's working well? What do we want to consider implementing change with? Who has a new idea for something that maybe you haven't, previous members have not thought about? The budget. Does the current budget level produce the necessary funds to meet homeowner expectations? Now, that's an interesting, board expectations and homeowner expectations oftentimes can be different. Homeowners who may not have ever served on a board before, they'd like to visually see that things are happening or progressing within the community. Landscaping is a great way for you to show proof to an association homeowner that you are doing things in addition to, cleaning out the retention pond and also replacing the irrigation system. That's balancing sexy amenities with unsexy responsibilities. Okay. Reserve funds. Are there any special assessments necessary? Not always do you have to fund certain things. Sometimes an emergency happens, or sometimes specifically that you are going to assess for a specific project that's going to go over maybe a 3-year span, or be available for the association to have vote on. So are there any considerations that need to happen in addition to the budget for the reserve funds? And then value and cost. Has the association been getting good value from the vendors and the contracts? Next slide, please. So when we're talking about, are you getting good value? That doesn't mean, wipe the board clean and put every contract out to bid. As good managers will tell you, take a look at your contracts. Take a look, if it's your pool contract, obviously that's seasonal. My recommendation, talk about contract negotiations in November, December, okay? Contract negotiations in the month of May, when your pool is opening, possibly not the best time to do that. So be cognizant of the time of the year. I do think it's a great responsibility to do your due diligence on every contract, but that doesn't have to be done every year either. So be mindful of that. So again, a basic community plan consists of the following sections. It's got a vision statement, very similar to a charter, the current situation, and possibly a brief history. So here's where we are. Here's why we're saying that these are the things that we're looking to accommodate in the next 5 years, and here's why. What are the goals and the objectives for the community association? You know, again, try not to make this a novel. Having bullet points of goals and objectives, that is a fantastic community plan in my book. Key steps in achieving goals and objectives. Just like your reserve fund, just because your reserve fund, you know, for the next 30 years says, hey, the tennis courts need to be resurfaced next year, doesn't mean that they have to. If you still have a couple of years still left and there are minor cracks, you've already had it resurfaced, you know, recently within the last several years, you might have more life expectancy. And instead of putting it as a 2024 capital improvement expenditure, you're going to maybe possibly extend it to 2026. The same thing can be said for your community plan. Just make sure that you explain the reason and the rationale behind it so that your future board members and the homeowners have a healthy understanding and they don't feel like you're hiding information from them because you've set an expectation now that has changed. And then the 5-year plan. So due to limited resources, most strategic plans require multiple years to implement. So not only are we talking about, hey, let's create this great, you know, grand 5-year plan, it's not going to happen overnight either. So obviously give yourself that grace and that ability to pivot. And this is why having those goals and those objectives and, you know, keeping things as concise as possible and putting the history of why you are arriving at the updates that you are is so crucial. Next slide, please. Using a community plan. So now that we've talked about what is the plan, why do we want it to be so long, what are the things that are going to make it super effective for everybody for buy-in? Now, how do we roll this out? How do we actually use it? So once the community plan has been developed, the board of directors and possibly the community manager should use the plan as a management tool in assisting decision-making and providing vision. You know, sometimes you might be emotionally charged, you know, we're only human, and you might be emotionally charged with a decision or a discussion that's happening for votes, and you are, you know, maybe needing to review the objectives of the community and the community plan so you can get yourself refocused and take it away from being an emotional decision to a factual decision, okay? So first and foremost, let's document the community plan on a printable, I love this, printable brochure. I should have updated that, Kate. Document in a printable brochure, AKA a PDF. Make sure you just post it anywhere and everywhere you can. And I'm not talking about Facebook. I'm talking about, you know, within the community's ability to see this information. Define steps to take and begin implementation as a defined community plan. So just like a mission statement or any other business plan, what are you going to be doing in order to achieve this plan? Identify any practices, procedures, and the culture that will help you in achieving this vision. We're going to spend the rest of this class after this next slide. We're going to spend the rest of this class talking about why your community's culture is so important to getting that buy-in and get those expected results that you're looking for, and harmony and you know, improvement within your association's value. Ensure that all board decisions are made consistent with the objectives. To my earlier example just a moment ago, If you're feeling like you're out of sort and you might not be making the right decision, or maybe another board member is in that circumstance, you might be the one to delicately and professionally say, hello, board member, neighbor, my best friend, here, might I just realign you by chance? Okay. Use the community plan to create a brand image. You know, marketing is a real thing. Culture is a real thing, and it has its applicability in every facet of our lives as humans. It is absolutely no different for your association. I don't know if Chattahoochee Bluffs is on the call tonight, but shout out to this wonderful community that just joined Heritage in 2022. And what I love about this association so much, not only are they just a great community to work with, where the board has a very good strategic plan in place and they are implementing these things and being very, very courteous about the homeowners' involvement. They also have the greatest branded sweatshirts for their community. And you know, it's fun. You know, even in the sales process, I mentioned how much I enjoyed how well branded they are. It works, friends. It works. All right. Review the community plan each year and make revisions when necessary. So as I started this conversation out, you can go to the next slide. This is a perfect time of year. So get in that thought process. Okay, we have our annual meeting. We have our election of our board of directors. We have our strategic community planning session. You might hear us say that, you know, let's have a planning session, or what are our goals for this next year? Don't wait, you know, or I should say, you don't have to wait to do this plan at budget season. A lot of you are probably going, hey, actually, Melissa, we do this during budget. So yeah, that's great. If that's working for you and you feel like you are able to hit those goals, communicate and publish them accordingly, and you feel like you have enough time to do that throughout the year, I love it. That's perfect. Great resource utilization, because you're already going through your contracts. You're already going through your financial over and unders. So that might be a great time. But personally, as a community manager, I always liked having my boards doing it at the beginning of the year. This is like a, you know, your New Year's resolution almost. So, all right, use the community plan to achieve your objectives. Community associations that develop and use a strategic community plan enhance the chances of achieving the objectives that are defined. So, number one, this is the main thing. If you walk away with anything from tonight's class, is you have a responsibility, board of directors and homeowners. You are not homeowners that do not serve. You are not excluded from this slide right here. You have a responsibility of protecting and enhancing the property values. You have the responsibility of maintaining the quality of life within your community. You absolutely are responsible for creating a sense of community. And that starts with how you communicate to each other, how you communicate to the community as a whole. Go ahead and go to the next slide, because I think now we're getting ready to go into our board code of ethics. Okay, so we talked about the community plan. I've already alluded to company culture, aka community culture. I've already alluded to ethical standards that regulate our actions, decisions, our emotions even. And so on this slide, community plans aren't just about aligning the vision of the community, okay? The board of directors must also consider the decorum and the conduct to be exhibited when addressing each other, the community members, neighbors, volunteers, and service providers. I mean, everybody's included. So it's essentially to ask, okay, here's where we are for our community. How are we going to get there? It's really, who are we that's going to take us to get there? So what are the ethics of your board of directors? In the state of Georgia, a code of ethics is not a requirement to be signed by a board of directors. Instead, it is a grand offering. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, I'll show you an example. But a board code of ethics really just says this very basic, information right here. And yes, my friends, all of you, you've won the lottery because you're all going to get a resource of this in a printable version, so that if you would like to adopt this for your current board and all future boards, you've got that opportunity. If you are a Heritage partner, we've got this for you, as well as some other really, really great resources for your board members. But understand that when association board of directors choose to unanimously adopt a board code of ethics, it really unites the vision of the culture for the association. If you are in the audience and you are possibly serving within your community, and you might be one of 2 or 3 board members and you are exhausted, you're clearly doing all of the work. People love that you do it because you do such a great job, but I really wouldn't want your job. If that's the way your community is looking at you, might I recommend we address this, because it's not that you, individual, are doing something wrong. It's that there's clearly not a cohesive vision for what is to be your association's objectives. Community plan is a great starter agent, as well as a board code of ethics. When Heritage communities that choose to elect this, we have several of our associations that love to announce and broadcast this to all of their residents, to all of their homeowners, because they know that it shows that reinforcement. Believe it or not, most of those associations, they meet their quorum and they have volunteerism turnover. So it reduces that board burnout or that volunteerism burnout. It's not going to replace it, and it may not completely alleviate it, but it will certainly set the table. It will start to turn the tide. It will set healthier expectations. It may be difficult at the beginning, but once your homeowners see that it's consistent by way of your community plan, this has so many advantages that really transcend just the roles and responsibilities of being a good board member, the fiduciary responsibility that you have to your homeowner. So next slide is going to talk about Heritage's commitment to codes of conduct. Go ahead on the next slide. So it's not just enough for your association to have a plan, for your association to have a unified board of directors that say, hey, listen, I'm going to treat my fellow members with respect. I'm going to watch my, communication. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to abstain from any conflicts of interest, anything that could be considered devious in nature or perception, because let's face it, friends, perception is reality to a lot of people. A code of ethics can really strengthen that. And our last slide tonight is really a dedication that Heritage has adopted in recent times related to post-pandemic season, so to speak. We have seen a great surge in incivility between adults, children, anybody, animals, you name it. And so we believe that a great strategic way to also set those expectations is to make sure that if you do partner with a management company, that we also help advocate and let you know what our level of commitment is when we talk to your homeowners, your other fellow board members, yourselves, and what we communicate to each other. So for those of you that know a little bit about Heritage, we are guided by our 27 fundamentals, which is called the Heritage Way. And if you ever do any email communication with us or go to our website, you'll see them in our signature. They change on a weekly basis and we love them. So we go through the fundamentals about twice a year, which is fantastic. But that is the solid foundation that all of us as employees are able to connect and get centered in so that we can give our best foot forward. So as we're talking about a code of ethics is not a requirement to be signed by a board of directors, and we're suggesting and encouraging that you do, we also want you to understand that we're coming to you from a place of we recognize what's happening. We too are in the trenches with you if you are seeing any difficulties with that. And so We have actually released this challenge. This is, I think, our second year strong on this one. And we absolutely mean it. We are going to respond to every situation, person, and environment with courtesy and tact. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to like what we have to say, but we're not going to do, we're not going to yell. We're not going to raise our voices. We're not going to have any physical altercations. And we're not going to allude that that's even an opportunity that's going to be present. If you have concerns about not achieving quorum, you might want to also consider what's the conduct, what is the association's perception of the board of directors or even other homeowners that are within your community. So education is the best resource that you can offer to combat anything that is really negatively addressed within community association management. We're not going to be able to solve everything for you, but we definitely, as your best business advisors or our best business practice advisor, so to speak, we're coming to you from a really authentic place here. We want to reinforce and support you. And so this is our commitment to you, whether you are a client of Heritage's or not. We certainly recommend that something like this might even be adopted for your community, because for us, this is a branding. Our company culture is exactly what unifies us, what keeps us from jumping off the ledge and turning in our notices. It's no surprise if you've served on your board of directors or are a homeowner and you're on this call, it can be difficult from time to time. A lot of times when people talk to community managers, it's because they either have a balance due or we're telling them that they, shouldn't have cut down the tree without approval in their front yard. So not every circumstance that we have with your homeowners is a good one, but what we can make a commitment to you for is that we're going to treat everyone and every circumstance with the same level of commitment, the same level of courtesy as we would to, our fellow team members. So with that, if you have any additional questions related to what we can help do for your community, again, we're going to have the follow-up here tomorrow morning with the survey. We'd love to hear from you about how we can better serve you in those areas, whether you're a Heritage employee or, partner or not. So I think now we're going to go ahead and I think I'm going to go to our questions. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look and see what we've got populating. Okay. So it looks like we have got, how can we get referrals for people to do the reserve studies? Love that question. It might be a great idea for me to just put together a document and maybe I'll go ahead and include that in our follow-up from tonight's or this session. You are going to be receiving, obviously, everything that we see here or you see here. There are going to be the board code of ethics that I certainly want to make sure that you have copies of. And then I will also ensure that we get a couple of reserve study vendor considerations for you also to reach out to. If you have not been to heritageproperty.com, which is our main website, feel free to go there. We have a list of preferred vendors that are completely open to anybody in the public to take a look at. There's some great, probably the same vendors that I'm going to provide to you after this course are also going to be updated and listed on our website. So feel free to go ahead and look there as well. I set out to accomplish exactly what I thought I was going to do. And that means that there are really no other questions for the evening because there was a lot of content that we covered. And we're going to make sure that you have all of this information readily available so that you can share these with other friends and with other volunteers and potentially promote some really awesome positive vibes within your community. And raising assessments can be a positive vibe if you are able to communicate the why behind it. So, looks like we do have another question. Who do we contact if we experience unpleasant experiences with homeowner communications? Is there a point of contact other than, okay, so this is a Heritage question. So yes, I'm glad that you asked that. So if you are a Heritage partner and you obviously have your community manager, which is your number one point of contact. So certainly address all things first with your community manager. If for whatever reason that needs to be escalated for whatever matter that you feel necessary, your community manager is paired with a director. That's a senior level management within our property management division. And so if you do not know who that is, you're welcome to reach out to your community manager and get their contact information, or you're more than welcome to reach out to me offline, and I will absolutely get you the correct individual to do that. But all of you tonight, if you are a Heritage partner, your community manager is your main point of contact. They have a director that they report to you on a monthly basis. And then you also have a property accountant that also helps reinforce your community manager. They're the ones that are going to be procuring your financials on a monthly basis. So those are great resources available to you. How can I, as a fellow board member, get the president to enforce all covenants and not just the ones that they believe is important? That is a great question. And I definitely think for this one, having a conversation and maybe even approaching it like this. Hey, we had this great class. We talked about a strategic plan. What if we sat down and we talked about things, and maybe we have an open discussion about enforcement procedures or the things, let's review our policies. That's another thing that I didn't talk about. When doing the community plan, thank you for asking this question, by the way. When doing the community plan, you can break it up into segments. So, you might be looking to achieve a lot in 5 years, right? Maybe reviewing policies is a first step. What is the adage? Eat an elephant one bite at a time. This is a perfect example of that. So let's start with policies first. Then let's go into rules and regulations. Then let's look at amending the declaration, maybe having the steps. So that way it's a non-confrontational opportunity for you to just say, hey, what are our thoughts about this? And then if you are really receiving a lot of pushback, the beautiful thing about serving on a board of directors is there should be more than one person. And there should be really more than 2 people. There should be 3 to 5 to 7 to 9. I've seen larger ones, but there should be odd number board members. So if maybe you're an association that maybe has some vacancies, and maybe you're a 2-person board and you're the only person in the circumstance that's going to talk to them, I would definitely recommend opening that up for everybody to have conversation about. That way it doesn't come across as if, hey, you're doing something wrong and we need to fix it, because maybe their perspective is that they're doing a great job for the association. So the next thing that I would say, and this is, really the nth degree here, if you're a Heritage partner, definitely consult your community manager and their director, because this is where we can help reinforce some good ideas in more detail for your community. But if you're a self-managed partner, you might want to engage your association's attorney and just get their perspective on what to do based on the actual nuances for the community. Because, if they're not enforcing everything, there could be, and I'm not at all suggesting that this is what's happening, but it could be speculated that there might be selective enforcement, and that is a hot water no-no for every association. So I'm very glad that you asked that question and you gave me the opportunity to kind of elaborate a little bit more about that. Hey, do we have any other questions? Or I think that actually might be it for the night. I have a fantastic production team in the background that are queuing up these questions for me. And I certainly want to make sure that we get everything addressed tonight. And I think that is going to be it. It is. Okay. Well, the 3 questions or 2 questions that we did get were excellent. So I really appreciate you staying and being present and listening and trying to apply this to your community. For all of you attending, as I said, you're going to get these great resources. Tomorrow morning, afternoon, you're going to receive a follow-up survey. Tell us, how did you like this? Do you need some additional resources that maybe I referenced earlier in the conversation? Or if there are any additional topics of classes that really interest you, that you would possibly like to see in our upcoming calendar for Heritage University. So while it is the very beginning of the year, the Heritage University calendar is going to start to fill up here quite quickly. Again, my production team behind the scenes and we are planning all of the courses for the remainder of the year. And for those of you who have been with us in the few years past, we're really going to be doing a more board professional development track this year. So as we kind of joke around in the background, this is going to be college courses for your junior and sophomore years. So last year we did the freshman courses. This year we're going to be doing the junior and sophomore courses and try to give you, now that we've gotten your basic foundation started, now we can go ahead and build and help you propel yourselves forward for the community. So be on the lookout, heritageproperty.com. Remember, go to homeowner resources. You're going to see the community focused calendar right there. If you have not had a chance to take a look at any of our courses from previous conversations, we do have a YouTube page, which is also available on our main website, the location that I just said. And then it will actually take you to the previous recorded classes and you can peruse. Again, the production team behind the scenes has done a fantastic job. They've made it so easy for you. We know you don't have a whole hour to sit and watch this on replay. So in fact, we've made chapters for you to go ahead and delve into so that you can go specific to the topic that you want to get some guidance or some information on. And hopefully we can capture your attention in that regard. And we're also going to be doing some new classes and new content to share for Heritage University this year. So we're going to be doing some AMAs or Ask Me Anythings that are going to be a little bit shorter than the 1 hour traditional class that we have in the evening. And we might be offering, you know, it's on the conversation table. We might be offering some lunchtime options for some of you throughout your workday. So for that, we sincerely appreciate you taking the opportunity to join us for our discussion today. It's a great final chapter to our board basics series that we started off with last year, and very proud of the educational commitment that we offer to all of you. Your resources from tonight's class are going to be available to you. They are going to come to you in an email probably midweek next week. So again, look out tomorrow for the survey and the recap, and if you've got any feedback that you want to offer. And then next week, we will have all of the resources compiled for you, the recording and everything that you need in order to share this with some other friends or to watch it on replay. That'll be available to you next week. So with all of that fun, thank you again for joining me and having this conversation with me. I look forward to seeing you again in the audience very, very soon. Have a wonderful evening.